Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're taking another look at a mid-range Abyss deck. Mid-range Abyss is a reasonably solid deck at this point. It has stabilized out with a build that does do the job pretty well. I mean, some people are having some great success through the rankings. You can see some decent 600 plus win accounts now for Abysscraft, which is pretty impressive and pretty committed to the bit, honestly. But it still is in that iffy stage where it does pretty well, but it's not the most consistent deck in the world. I've definitely had games where I will struggle to close them out, even through like Cerberus and Shadowcraft combinations, because it can just struggle to reach that final point of doing that last little bit of damage sometimes. But overall, I've had a lot of fun with the deck, and I think if I played it more and got more used to the lines of play, I could definitely do a lot better with it overall. But we are going to get right into it and take a look. So kicking us off, we have a Dragoncraft matchup. Dragoncraft matchup is actually one of the better matchups I've had. As far as Dragon goes, usually you can outspeed it a little faster than they can outspeed you, but that's not all the time. You will struggle if they just double drop Forte on you. That is definitely something that's a problem, but that's a problem for every deck, not exclusive to Abyss. Dealing with double Forte and keeping your health high is just extremely difficult. But in this case, we are just dropping Ward instantly. I do like to do the turn 1 use a playpoint play, get a 2-drop on board early a lot. With this deck, don't know whether they're 100% that's the correct way to go with it, but getting the early aggression feels pretty good. They do end up popping all my cards, unfortunately, but we then get our little miss to the board. Still probably one of my favorite MVP cards for being a bronze card. It's effectively 3 bodies in 1 and does a really nice job of retaining board. So we do have to deal with this 5/5, which is a little bit of a pain. I do end up just deciding to pop it using Reaper Death Slash. You can also do a pretty nice combination with Super Evolve and Reaper Death Slash, which allows you to activate its effect without losing your follower. It's definitely I highly recommend using that if you ever get the opportunity. So they do end up dropping the Lionheart. That is going to at least clean up this completely. Especially when they include the Lizard as well. Getting both cards on board is a pretty easy way to clear. And Olivia is probably the biggest swing card in this deck. So Olivia on 7 can really get you some value. Between that and Cerberus, they're really the only good Super Evo options. Everything else, at least in my opinion, doesn't feel great to Super Evolve unless you can stick a Medusa. Medusa being stuck to board and Super Evolve will do 18 damage on its own to face, so if you do manage that combination, it's really good, but usually I like to dump a Medusa, clear board, and then say, hey, can you deal with it? The Eternal Hunter here, really nice card, does do 7 damage. It's a nice little board clear most of the time, which is good value. And if comboed well with the Olivia, if it does stick, and you go for your Evo, you can actually get some really nice value out of it, as you're going to see here. So I drop the Olivia. We end up drawing a couple of cards. We end up with the Devious Lesser Mummy, which is actually more valuable here than going for the Evo on the 4-2. Since you don't trigger the Evo effect through Olivia anyway. So I clean up most of this and we get the damage we need. We leave them on just 3 health going into the next turn, which is very hard to deal with the limited cards they have. And unfortunately, that's all we needed to win. So overall, I mostly end up playing this deck as a more aggressive deck. Trying to just keep the tempo high. You want to be able to drop your 2, 3, 4 plays and just keep rolling up the play points as you go. Constantly dropping things to board as much as possible to pressure your opponent to deal with them. Because if you can retain that tempo by the time you get to turn 8, you can pretty much win most games.
A job.
Because you're going to chip away at them faster than they can chip away at you a lot of the time. So we are up against Puppet Portal. This deck has become wildly popular at this point, with a lot of people having success with it in Master Rank and higher.
A job.
With both Diamond and Master Rank tiers, but I think going into the Puppet matchup, as long as you don't get double Orcust, you can win it most of the time. At least from what I've experienced, playing both Rune, Abyss, Dragon into it. And in this case, we're mostly just playing on curve here, getting our damage in, setting up a little bit of board here and there. Trying to generate those shadows for the Lesser Mummy. And Darkseal Demon is a nice turn 5 card, honestly. So we basically just go for the Serb here. It gives us a heal. I end up even evoing it just to make it a little more sticky so it's hard to deal with. And getting the 2 health is fine. It's one of your 2 healing options, like Cerberus and Ceres. So we have to deal with this 4/4 now. This is where the 5-drop comes in handy. This thing has a Evo, deal 6 damage to a follower. So you can easily clear that up and then hit face for a little more damage while also just healing as well. So like I said, you're basically just trying to get as much damage on face as you can as quickly as you can. That's really the big thing with this deck. Because Cerberus can do some decent swingy turns, but the bigger problem is making sure you can get those turns while also dealing with your opponent's boards. So now I just tried to go for the Fang here with Evo. We're just going to hit face. We're going to get that damage in, like I said. We're at full health here, and they've got a 7-2. They aren't able to drop August because they aren't on the turn 2, so they're not going for the extra play point since they're going second. So they do go for the Noah, which is a pretty smart play, honestly. Noah's a really nice one here. And they are just out of range of a good Cerberus play. But we do now have another Cerberus. We have the Olivia Devious Mummy play. We've got some pretty good options, I feel like. So I decided to go for the maximum summoning on damage on this one while setting up our board. Really the only threat is if they could OTK me from here, from 13 basically. They can 1-turn kill me with the Orcus. That's definitely a concern. But it's not the easiest thing in the world to do because more than often than not, it can do about 12 damage to face. And it can't really usually do too much more than that, as you see here. So I did get some damage in. Not a crazy amount, luckily. Unfortunately for us, we easily win this with the Cerberus. But again, I think Olivia also would have just won us that either way, so we had a few good options there. And last but not least, we have Swordcraft. Swordcraft to me with Abyss has been about a 50-50, just because if they do go super wide, super fast, sometimes I'll have a bit of trouble dealing with them. So I typically end up holding things like Eternal Hunter to make sure I can deal with those kind of boards, and try and look for the early ward cards as well, so that I can limit the amount of damage I'm going to be taking from early sword plays. So we end up going for the play point play again, dropping the ward. No, like, it's pretty solid. You can't go wrong. And we don't really have a great way to deal with that, unfortunately. I end up just chipping in some damage, though. Well, they do just swarm board even more. Which, again, isn't really a problem. We have Bellringers in hand. We have our Deeper Wrath. We're pretty much set to go for Eternal Hunter in the next couple turns. While keeping the board reasonably clear so they can't do big damage. And as you can see, they are clearly trying to flood as much as they can. But it's not going to matter too much. We can even Evo this, which does give us another extra draw as well. Trying to generate some extra value off it, while taking out as many units as I can. So they end up trading in here, then going for the Luminous Mage. So this is where things can get a bit tricky, because when they go wide, it's just hard to deal with. And we're basically hoping for good luck when it comes to how our Eternal Hunter will play out. And we end up taking out the majority, which is fine. We do end up sending the Evo, which will do 3 damage to both of us and clean up one more unit, leaving just a 2-1 on board. A second Luminous Knight comes down though, a little annoying. They're clearly trying to stick a board so they could go for something like Zirconia and do big damage swing. Lucky for us, we are now live on the Medusas if we want, so Medusa can come down, clean up majority of this board, and be a card that they have to deal with or risk dying to. Because Medusa is basically the Genos of Abyss, where like when you're dealing with Geno, you have to kill it because it will kill you, and Medusa is in a similar category, where once it hits the board, you have to deal with it. Because ignoring it can risk you losing the game more often than not. Unfortunately, we have the back-to-back Medusa here, which will allow us to kill 3 more things, cleaning up even more of the board, and again, forcing them to have to waste resources. We do see the Amelia come down, which is a massive board to deal with. Luckily, Cerberus is a pretty decent way to deal with this while also getting in some heal and damage. So we do go for the damage play again, because we're actually not too far away from being able to potentially lethal them with a decent play. So we have a 2 heal and a 2 damage on board already, even if they clear. They end up going for a second Amelia. Again, they're just flooding us over and over and over again, forcing us to answer them. But we got pretty lucky having the cards that we needed to actually deal with pretty wide boards here. So again, we just need to deal with this board now. And Medusa is a great answer, a great top deck. We can trade for 3 here, leaving up the Medusa, threatening another 18 damage if we super evolve. And they end up just flooding as much as they can here. Getting a way to clear the Medusa is important for them. Not seeing an Albert was huge though, because if they did have Albert, we were just dead there if they had Super Evo the previous turn, so we did get a little lucky, but they have now used every Super Evolve anyway, so even Albert isn't actually a threat to us. So I go for the Olivia play, using our last Super Evolve here, getting a couple of massive units on the board. These followers are not going down easy with a 7-7 and 8-8 stat line. Hound of War gets to drop to the board and is going to actually clean up pretty nice for them. A little unfortunate, but it does force them to waste a lot of cards.
This is not the end.
And we now have a clean board just to hit them with. So we go for the Mistress, which has Storm. And then I end up dropping the Ghost one as well, because I could have dropped Minnow, but I don't feel like Minnow was worth using yet. Just in case. We end up trading off the Albert, which is a fair play. We were threatening them with lethal. But fortunately, the Cerberus pickup gives us an easy lethal, boosting our Ghost to 3-3 and doing 6 damage.
The better warrior won.
So this deck definitely gives you more options when it comes to Abyss. It's a more tempo variant of mid-range, it feels like, which I mean most mid-range decks do tend to play around tempo. Being able to just continually drop things, have them get answered, and then get damage in as you go is really valuable. And then dropping stuff like Cerberus, which is probably one of the best 8-drop Super Evolve units in the game, it just doesn't really have a deck that truly utilizes it in a massive way. This is kind of the closest Abyss has to a competitively viable deck. And again, I have seen a lot of people have success with this. I've seen multiple 10-win streaks from high-ranking Japanese accounts that are doing very well with Abyss currently. So it's definitely a deck that can work, but I wouldn't put my faith in it if you are either inexperienced or don't have the extra vials to just build this deck out. Because it's not something I would commit to for a free-to-play account. It's really just a deck that if you really like Abyss, you like how it functions, and you want to do well with it, this is the kind of list you want to run, because it's solid. It does a good job, and it's just all-round pretty good. There's a couple of adjustments you could probably make in low-end cards, like there's some options where you could run your own Lionheart and stuff like that instead of running some of these cards, but the top end's kind of set. If you're not running multiple Eternal Hunter, Olivias, Medusas, and Serbs, Abyss just really struggles and falls behind. So hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Until next time, guys, I'll see you then.